Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The college football playoff is set and nobody's happy. Also, Josh Allen found out he can't win a game by himself, and the Niners aren't dead yet. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
For the first time, we have 12 teams in the college football playoff. Oregon, the number one team in the nation after winning the Big Ten. Georgia, after beating Texas in a game that was technically football. They're going to be the 2 seed. Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On College Football joins me now. Spencer, the funny thing about having 12 teams is we have less to argue about because it did feel like we were pulling teeth a little bit to get 12 teams in this, but there's always something to argue about because you're making a face. So let's argue. What surprised you about the way this bracket broke?
Well, that the committee actually had the guts to keep Alabama out. I think most of us were expecting that they would just go with the chalk pick and SEC superiority, and all of a sudden the SEC is not getting exactly what they want. They're not very happy about that. But guess what? The proof has been in the pudding this year. The SEC, you want to make the case for the best conference in America? Fine. They don't deserve an inherent benefit of the doubt that puts them leaps and bounds above everybody else. We've got too many examples of non-conference games that went against the SEC that should dampen how we view the league compared to what it has been in the past. It's still really good, but it is not the SEC of 3, 4, 5 years ago, or even 2 or 3 years ago, quite frankly. So that's what was the most surprising but refreshing to see, that SMU wasn't punished for making their conference championship game. Ward Manuel said over and over, well, no, Georgia's not going to be punished for making the SEC championship game. Oh, but SMU could be. And it's like, wait, how exactly does that work? And if you think SMU's got a weak strength of schedule, why aren't you talking about Indiana? There are just so many contradictory elements that go into these college football playoff discussions. It can get a little bit tiresome, but it is why the sport is uniquely fascinating.
Indeed. It felt like there were maybe more teams when you had 4, for example, that you could point to and say, okay, these were deserving teams. When you have 12, like, do you feel like we needed 12 this year? No, we never needed 12. The sport never needed a 12-team playoff. I think 6 would have been fine. I would have stayed at 4 before I went to 12. I would have gone back to the BCS before I went to 12 teams. I mean, debates were. I think you can make the case for 8.
The debates we're having that have just diminished so many regular season games that we thought were impactful, and it hasn't completely taken away the value of it. I'm not protesting college football here. I am saying that Alabama almost got into the playoff when they went to Oklahoma, who's not a good football team, and got blasted. We almost decided that didn't matter. And I'm glad that as a sport, we decided it did matter. And results on the field play into it all. And I'm glad we remembered, oh yeah, that's right, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt. I know they're an improved football team. It's still Vanderbilt. Neither one of those teams would have been a bowl team had they not beaten Alabama. So I'm glad that they are not in that particular position to make the playoff. SMU should be in, and they are. That's great. Now let's get to the rest of the problems with the bracket, which are plentiful, which is the Oregon Ducks are the only undefeated team in all of college football. FCS, high major, like everywhere. That's a basketball term, but FBS, FCS, everywhere. Like, they're the only unbeaten. They win the Big Ten, and their reward is unquestionably the toughest path to get to the national championship. Penn State is so much better off. Penn State has a home playoff game, and Boise State waiting for them in the second round if they're able to win against SMU. So should Oregon have just thrown in the towel? Maybe that's why Oregon's defense played so crappy, is because they were going, oh, we want to lose. Hello, we don't want to show people we're losing, but like, we kind of want to lose the game, you know? So there's still a lot of problems with this, but am I surprised? Absolutely not. You took a sport run by people who have no idea why the sport is great, what makes it exciting for fans, and you said, you know what, we're going to give you more power. We're going to let you put more teams into the playoff and decide which regular season matchups matter and which ones don't. So I'm not shocked. I'm really not that it's this jungled mess, because I've been railing against it for a while, and I keep hearing from people, oh, you're going to come around. You're going to see how great it is. I'm like, no, this is exactly what I expected. I thought it would be a mess, and we'd be debating playoff spots for teams that don't deserve the right to be in the playoffs.
Guess what? It's probably still going to be really exciting, and we're going to watch all these games.
Oh, there are unquestioned positives about it. There's no, I'm not making any bones about that. Home playoff games, chef's kiss, best introduction to college football that the 12-team playoff has brought.
You can stay up to date all year on college football by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On College Football on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Your Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, Josh Allen was unbelievable and then lost. Before we get to that, the biggest contract in the history of sports signed last night. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You're going to want to check out some lines from Monday Night Football. The Bengals favored by 5.5 at Jerry World over the Cowboys. I had to start Cooper Rush in fantasy. The Simpsons broadcast is looking at some high-scoring football and has the total 49.5. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. You make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Juan Soto has a new team, but may not need a new zip code. The New York Mets. And Soto agreed to a 15-year deal worth, get this, $765 million on Sunday.
The New York Mets have signed Juan Soto. I'm still reeling from this news. This is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, and Juan Soto just signed a 15-year, $765 million contract with the New York Mets with no deferrals, which means this contract costs $51 million per season. Wow. Steve Cohen came to play, and he was able to beat out the Yankees and the Red Sox because he just put together the strongest offer probably by a mile. Yes, the Yankees went to $760 million, but they did it over 16 years. The Mets do this over 15 years. And they get their guy. This is a wild, wild move by the New York Mets to get Soto at this dollar amount. It is the biggest signing in franchise history, no doubt about it. And I have a rapid reaction podcast going up right now, and I'll have a full show on it as well tomorrow morning. So check it out.
The Chiefs played yet another one-possession game with the Chargers.
The doink heard round the division. Kansas City wins. They win the division for the 9th straight season. Matthew Wright kicks the ball off the upright, kicks it through, doinks the uprights. Huge win for Kansas City. This means they win the division. They're now a game and a half up on the Buffalo Bills because the Buffalo Bills lost. This is a huge win for Kansas City. They're in the driver's seat. They have to go 3-1 in the last 4 games to get to a point where they would be the #1 seed in the playoffs, and they absolutely need it. They need the rest. They need to get healthy. Kansas City did not play well. They started the game off. They struggled on 3rd down. That's one of the things we're going to talk about here in just a moment on the podcast. But overall, it was just not a good performance by the offense. They struggled keeping Mahomes upright, and that is going to be a big problem. They've got to get it figured out, and they lost DJ Humphries to an injury during the game. I'll be curious to see what we find out about that, and we'll have much more coming on Locked On Chiefs shortly.
And the Steelers took care of business against the Browns.
Hey everyone, Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast here at Acrisure Stadium after the Steelers have taken down the Browns 27-14. The Steelers advanced to 10-3 on the season behind what was a hard-fought game early, but eventually they pulled away and took control in the 3rd quarter. Russell Wilson, not an immaculate day, but a solid one. 15 of 26, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, finding different guys, 9 different receivers he found in this game. Big-time plays made by him, smart football across the board. The Steelers pass rush, making big plays, getting after Jameis Winston, getting sacks. Cam Hayward with 2 sacks on the day, and big time plays all around. And then also 2 interceptions. Keanu Benton gets one, James Pierre gets another. The Steelers defense came out with a plan. They gave up a big play early, but bounced back and shut things down. A big team win for the Steelers across the board. Offensive line also had a good day. We'll break it down here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Check it on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Again, on Chris Carter. We'll see you on the full episode.
Josh Allen put on one of the most impressive performances by a quarterback you can have, and his team lost. Locked On Bills host Joe Marino did not hold back his frustration for his team's performance after the game.
We should be talking about and celebrating a heroic and all-time and elite and exceptional performance by Josh Allen, but we're not. We're talking about how that was spoiled here in this post-game reaction. Want to get into this conversation in a more traditional sense. I want to talk about things I didn't like, which is quite a bit. Want to talk about some blunders, which I guess fall under things I didn't like. And then I do want to get into things I liked. Maybe give you a silver lining and talk about what's next. So let's get into this. Things I didn't like, and we're just going to start with the defense. That was an unserious defensive effort by the Buffalo Bills. The Rams got whatever they wanted. And it started with them winning up front. They controlled the action with their offensive line. Bills' defensive line was, oh boy, what a horrible performance. The drive charts for the Rams, absolutely insane. This is in order. 12 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. 10 plays, 65 yards, field goal. 12 plays, 76 yards, touchdown. End of half. 11 plays, 76 yards, touchdown. 7 plays, 70-yard touchdown. 3 and out. They punted. Wow. 11 plays, 71 yards, touchdown. Are you kidding? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scoring drives of more than 65 yards. You ain't going to beat anybody like that. Not even if your quarterback goes out and has 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. Just an absolutely unserious defensive effort. Giving up 44 points. Giving up 28 first downs. They converted 12 possession downs. They're 12 of 16 on 3rd and 4th downs. You couldn't get a stop. You could not come close to getting a stop. Conceding 457 yards of offense. The Rams possessed the ball for 38 and a half minutes. It's one of the worst defensive performances I've seen from the Buffalo Bills. Not necessarily in a long time, but in my lifetime. An unserious defensive effort. Pass rush, complete no-show. Didn't sniff Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford just dicing up the Bills left and right. Dot after dot after dot after dot. The Bills say, we're going to play zone coverage and we're going to dare you to make high level of difficulty throws. And Matthew Stafford said, okay, no problem. I'll do that. I'm one of the most talented quarterbacks in terms of arm talent in the league over the last 20 years. Sure, yeah, I'll make all those throws. No problem. 23 of 30, 320 yards. Dime after dime after dime after dime. And I think the Bills needed to play more man defense early in the game. I think they needed less delayed blitzes. I mean, I'm watching second-level defenders on a delayed release, and all you're doing is just vacating space and making it easy for Matthew Stafford. You needed your defensive lineman to win a one-on-one battle and get off a block and get quick pressure and make a play behind the line of scrimmage. Taron Johnson's getting cooked left and right from the slot. I talked about in the build-up to this game that this is a matchup of good on good with their receivers against the Bills' corners. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua against Taron Johnson, Rasul Douglas, and Christian Benford. Their good beat our good. I mean, literally not a single clutch play made on defense. And that's been your formula all year. You get a little bit leaky, you give up some yards, but at some point you'd get a play. Not tonight. Not in this one. Stafford had whatever he wanted. And hat tip to him, man. He went out there and executed, played one heck of a game. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua made plays left and right. They had timely play calls from Sean McVay that kind of knew where the Bills were going to be trying to pressure or where they were going to play coverage, and just had the right answers over and over and over and over and over again. Got outplayed, got outcoached. And the run defense, I think if you look at it in totality, you're not going to look at 42 rushes, 137 yards as a terrible game, right? Only 3.3 yards per carry. But it started hot, and I thought it opened up everything for their team. They start to control the line of scrimmage. They're running the football well. The Bills have to start rolling safeties down into the run fit. They have to start run blitzing to get stops against the run. And that, I thought, opened up a lot for their passing game. But the bottom line is your defense you didn't have any answers. Ever in the game. Just unbelievable in terms of the Rams meeting the moment, in terms of exactly the type of style of defense the Bills are going to give you, and them having every right idea, execution, pulled every correct lever, and the Bills had no answers. And I'm sure that's going to bring up a lot of questions about, Matt Milano, is he helping? Now, Dorian Williams was on an ascending path. It's going to bring up questions. Rasul Douglas gets hurt and Kyer Elam's inactive, and is that the right move? It's going to bring up questions about a defensive line rotation and if it's good enough. I get it. I understand all the possibilities that people are thinking about. And maybe it was just an uncharacteristic game and it's not replicatable, and Stafford, Nacua, and Kupp played out of their minds, and that's probably not going to happen again. But boy, oh boy, was that an unserious effort from Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbich's defense.
You can stay up to date all year on the Buffalo Bills by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bills on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Niners, they aren't dead yet. Were reports of the 49ers' demise premature? Locked On 49ers host Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker discuss why the 49ers and the way they played on Sunday makes them think they have a chance to make the playoffs.
But man, Niners have to win a whole bunch of games, and maybe they're poised to do that, because when you see a performance like this from the 49ers, it makes you feel like, yeah, maybe they could go on that run, right? Just after you're so down on them after the last couple of losses.
Super down on them. I'm looking for 49ers still last, but tied for last, and they're still within striking distance, but they don't play Seattle Seahawks anymore. I think that's a tough thing, right? Because you still got the Rams, still got the Cardinals, so you are kind of in control of your own destiny with making up ground on those guys. But Seattle, sitting at 8-5 right now, the 49ers need a lot of help. I don't think that the 49ers make the playoffs without winning the NFC West. So you need some teams to start taking out the Seahawks. I was actually rooting for Arizona against Seattle, because that would bring the 49ers a game closer, and the 49ers still play Arizona. So that was a tough one to watch, see how that played out.
Yeah, that was absolutely a game that 49ers fans are rooting for the Arizona Cardinals to win. So the Seahawks got a couple games on everybody in the NFC West right now, and the 49ers are going to need some help, and they're going to have to win a whole bunch of games and probably win out at this point. But when they play like they did on Sunday, Croc, they can do it. They can do it. Phenomenal performance. Start to finish, 4 quarters. They slammed the door. They closed out a game. They started fast, scored a touchdown on the opening drive. They did everything we wanted them to do in this game. So good on the 49ers. They accomplished the goal. Check it off. Keep going. Keep it going.
Nothing we'd seen really all year suggested the 49ers were a playoff team. Certainly not a playoff team with any sort of aspirations. Not with Christian McCaffrey not playing, not with Brandon Ayuk not playing. This is the first time they have looked like that. And it's not a surprise that it's as healthy as they've been in a long time. Brandon Ayuk's not coming back. Deebo Samuel's explosiveness doesn't seem to be coming back. Christian McCaffrey, we don't know. Jordan Mason, we don't know. But this team is scary. And as someone who covers the Packers, a team that has lost to the 49ers when it didn't look like they had their A team, their A season, no one in the NFC wants to see this team get rolling. No one. And finally, college football rivalries are blood feuds. Sometimes they even divide blood. Houses divided Kirk Herbstreit can relate. The former Ohio State quarterback saw his son commit to Michigan over the weekend. Chase Herbstreit will join the Wolverines on scholarship as the second quarterback in the program's 2025 class, alongside five-star passer and number 1 overall prospect Bryce Underwood. Guessing Thanksgiving week will be a fun one from here on out for the Herbstreits. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, which first-round college football playoff team will shock the world and win it all? It could happen. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.